शारदा शारदां भोजवदना वदनाम्बुजे सर्वदा सर्वदास्माकं सन्निधिं क्रियात् श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानामालयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करं लोकशङ्करं सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां भारतीकरुणापात्रं भारतीपदभूषणं भारतीपदमारूढं भारतीतीर्थमाश्रये विद्याविनयसम्पन्नं वेदराजविवेकिनं वन्दे वेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञं विदुशेखरभारती सद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। So last talk we talked about Dharmashastram. We are continuing again this week also. But last talk, if you remember, we talked about Samanya Dharma, that is Dharma that is applicable for everybody. And primarily we looked at Yama Niyama. What is Yama, which is restraints, Niyama, which are rituals. What is everybody supposed to do, not just some people like Ayyappa devotees or students of Veda. Everybody is supposed to do. It's unfortunate we saw that times have become so bad. The wheel of Dharma is going down right now. It's not going up because we are in Kali Yuga. Because of that, we are seeing that what is supposed to be meant for everybody, we are lucky if some special people do it. That's where the Yama Niyama is coming. And we also saw how Dhru means uphold, uplift, keep steady, which is the root from which the word Dharma comes. And Shastram, we saw that it's a science. Sha Astram, Sham Astram. So it leads you to light knowledge. And we call it a science because it's repeatable. Everybody who does it will get the same result. There's no difference. So it's a standard formula. You just repeat over and over. It's not something where I experience but you cannot. That's the meaning of Shastram. And we saw that the English equivalent probably that comes close to say Dharma Shastram is the science of desire management. As Swami Tejamayananda puts it, he is the head of Chinya Mission. He says it's called, one way to equate it and understand it is, call it the science of desire management. So why do you need to manage desires? We are running our lives. There is a science for everything that we are learning in school, but there is no science for life that we are learning. So that's a major shortcoming in the Western style of teaching, I guess. Even in India, it's not that they are teaching Dharma Shastram or anything. If at all anybody is learning, even in Veda Parathalas, those who are there probably go for advanced lessons, they probably learn Dharma Shastram and so forth. But those who are in the basic level even don't probably get into it. So why do we need to learn this science of life? Abhyudaya, as it's mentioned in the Shastram, upliftment. So the integrated personality leading to purity, prosperity, peace, and so forth. So if you learn Dharma Shastra, you can get there. We saw that. We also saw that Dharma Shastra himself, Dharma Shastram, Dharma Shastra, there's a lot of connection, right? The names of themselves, they are so close. So if you see why they are close, Shastra means teacher. So Dharma Shastra himself is the teacher of Dharma. So it would be a bit ironic for us to say we are all devotees of Ayyappa, but we don't know Dharma Shastra. He's supposed to have taught us by now. If not, he is doing it to us, to me now, right? That's the way to look at it. We saw all of those. And so we also saw where is the source of Vedas, the source of Dharma. The primary source is Vedas. But of course, accessibility to Vedas, it is restricted. Not everybody has access to it. So our rishis were kind enough to take many of the concepts from that and expanded it in the form of Smriti. There are different Shastras or Smriti that address more elaborate, forms of all the Dharma. They are generally Vedas are a little bit cryptic and abstract, so it's a little bit hard to interpret and understand. Shastras make it very clear, do's and don'ts. So they have just basically you can think of it as a rule book of do's and don'ts. And so what are the supposing something is not covered in the Vedas and Shastras, then what do you do? Then we talk about Sadacharam. That is, look at great scholars or great people who follow Dharma. follow their footsteps. What they do the same. That's the third source of dharma. In fact, Manu Rishi stops there. He says those are the only three sources. There are some others who have added a fourth source, and they call it Atma Tushti, or self-contentment. So whatever that makes you happy. The risk with that is in Kali Yuga, what makes you happy, it can be dangerous. So that is the risk in following that. Anyway, we saw that Samanya Dharma means Yama Niyama. We went through all the various forms of Yama Niyama. I'm not going to expand that here again. A couple of points that we missed in the last talk, I just want to touch upon. So when you take all these things, the do's and don'ts, and you combine them, you get basically three groups. Kartavya karma, that is what you have to do. And then Kamya karma, I want to do. Maybe it benefits me, my family, society, doesn't matter. Kamya karma. So I'm expecting some result and then doing it. There's nothing wrong in that. And then Nishiddha karma, you're not supposed to do it. So that's the three major categories in which all these tasks fall or actions fall. The irony with our life these days is what the Shastram says, Kartavya, you have to do, we don't want to do. Sandhyavandam is very hard, when Hari is you have to stay there, you have to do every day, you have no choice, otherwise you throw you out, of course. So, Kartavya is hard, we don't want to do. Nishiddha, we want to do. So, whatever has been prohibited, I'd love to do that. There's so many list of that. So, unfortunately, our modern life has become in a bit topsy-turvy, you can see. What is to be done, we don't want to do. What is not to be done, we would like to do. Probably therein lies a clue for understanding why many of us are in a lot of stress. Many of us are, feeling like our life is upside down. Maybe if you're not feeling great, but the irony is many of us are sometimes ignorant. We think my life is great, I have no problems. But actually, we haven't really analyzed ourselves, our lives seriously. If we did an honest introspection, a lot of things will come out. So let's say I've made a mistake, Nishiddha karma, I committed, then what do? If in the Shastram says you committed a sin, is there no way out of it? Yes, there is. We talk about Prayashchittam. So when you talk about Prayashchittam, Prayaha Chittam, Swami Tejamananda explains it nicely. So Prayaha itself means, atonement, or in English probably atonement. And in last talk we talked about three, feeling shy. So the first thing is to feel shy and repent for the mistake you did. The repentment and the atonement has to be strong enough that you won't repeat it again. Or the intensity keeps on going down. Sometimes Swabhavam can push you. Swabhavam is what you're born with. Doesn't go away easily. So that can keep on making you repeat that mistake. But at least the shyness has to constantly increase. The shame has to increase every time. Intensity or frequency keeps coming down. Very soon, as soon as possible, you stop. That's the best way to do that Prayashchittam. And Chittam also means tapas. So they say you can do a lot of tapas, japam to fix the mistake that you did. More importantly, I think these days feeling sad for that mistake, that seems to be the best possible medicine to, and therein lies why our Sanatana Dharma is so easy for anyone to follow. We argue our way out of anything. I felt bad, Swami, everything is okay, I fixed it. So we have a solution for everything. All those we saw in last talk. Now we are going to talk about Vishesha Dharmam. The moment I touch upon Vishesha Dharmam, the first thing I want to say, it's a slippery slope. Why is it a slippery slope? Vishesha Dharmam talks about what different groups of people have to do. When you say, the moment you say groups, it feels like, okay, are we dividing ourselves? All those things will come. Or are we not together? All those questions will come. So, I really pray to my Guru and Sharadamba and beg their forgiveness if I make any mistake. And more importantly, I need their blessing not to make any mistake. So, only good words in the right sense come out of my mouth. And then those words are interpreted and understood by everybody, not just here, those who might listen to it later on. All of them also understand it in the right way, right spirit and the right meaning. So with that prayer, let me talk about Vishesha Dharmam. So we talked about groups of people. Who are groups of people? You think about some examples. Arjun, you listening? Okay. So student, starting with you. So there are students. That's a group. The next is married people, right? Dad and mom, grihasthas. So that is the next set of group people. Retirees, people who have retired or who are about to retire or getting ready for retirement or wondering what to do after retirement. All of those in Sanskrit, we call it Vanaprastham, but let's just call it retirees. And then we talk about sannyasi, somebody who has given up everything, renounced everything, no attachment. So there are different groups of people. Does it end there? No. There's still more groups. Stree, Purusha, woman, man. So there is dharma for woman, dharma for man. There are different groups. And for every one of them, and not only that, we have Raja, king, Raja Dharma, right? So Raja Niti, there is there's a separate shastram for that. Like that, there are different groups. So far, if you look at all the groups I mentioned, it's not that special. Either somebody is a man or a woman. Either somebody is a student or a householder or a retiree. Maybe sannyasi, not everybody, but everybody else, if you see, we all fall somewhere. So almost in that sense, though this is Vishesha Dharma, it feels like Samanya Dharma because it applies to everybody again, not just some special people. What are they supposed to do? Number one for a student. Number one for a student. Are you listening? Yeah. Number one for a student. 3 people, most important people for you. Who are the 3 most important people? Number 1, Mata, mother. Number 2, Pita, father. Number 3, Guru. Guru is your teacher. And in fact, my Guru says, anyone who talks to you, even one aksharam or one letter, if you learn one letter from somebody, they are your Guru. So it's not just, your spiritual teacher or somebody. It's also what you learn from school. So many teachers are there, right? One teacher teaches math, one teacher teaches English. All of them are gurus. And you have to respect all these 3 people. Mother is your first guru. Then she says, look at your father, he'll teach you the rest. And after some time, father says, you're too smart for me. Go to the guru, he will teach you the rest. So mother and father push you to the guru finally, and they teach you everything, right? All those 3 are the most important. And then Dharma Shastram gets into a lot of more details. What should a student do? You learn. Your focus is only learning. Everything is about learning, knowledge, acquiring knowledge. But you learn it without difference to day and night. You don't care whether it's day or night. Your focus is always on that. They're respecting these 3 people. So that is your brahmacharyam. And then, in fact, in the old days, they used to say that, I don't know if it is true or not, it's just hearsay. That means it's not part of Shastram, just hearsay. People say that if you go to Veda Padashalas, they will keep on serving food without salt to this boy every day. The day he says, oh, there is no salt, they'll send him home. Until then, he can be in the school and learn. They say that. So that's the kind of focus they wanted from these students. Next is, of course, Grihastha. Grihastha is the householder. Most important, group or ashram, as you can say. Why? Because they are the ones who sustain everybody else. They sustain the student, they sustain the retiree, they sustain the sannyasi, everybody. So very, very important. They are almost like the cog in the wheel, they are the linchpin. Without them, it's very hard to sustain any culture or any, society. So what do they do? What are they supposed to do? For them, they prescribe the Pancha Yajnam, the 5 types of yajnams that you are supposed to do every day. It goes into details. I don't want to get into the detail, but I'll just mention it to you briefly. Deva Yajnam, Rishi Yajnam, and then Pitri Yajnam, Bhuta Yajnam, Manushya Yajnam. There are 5 yajnams. And, because gods created us and rishis gave us so much knowledge, we are indebted to them. At the time of birth itself, we are already indebted. So to repay that debt, we do these yajnams. Manushya, Bhuta. Manushya is anybody who comes home. We talk about Atithi. So many things are covered in Shastram. But in general, this 5 actually applies to everybody, so it's not just special people. And then another major aspect of the householder life is, of course, Shraddham. That's a major ritual that we all have to take it seriously. It's really not, many people sometimes they say,
Oh, I just gave food in the orphanage. I just think and pray. I offer charity. That's all good you can do, but that's not sufficient. You have to really go through that ritual. In fact, if you listen to Swamiji's lecture, he really gets into details on, okay, I called some Brahmin, I served him food today. How does my ancestor get it? He gives examples and all that. I don't want to get into the details, but he says actually there is a Pitraloka. It is true. So where the parts of our ancestors' souls are there, and they are looking for salvation to us. Through us, they get salvation, and how they get the food. You just like sending Western Union money transfer. You send dollar here, somebody gets rupaya or rupee or whatever in India. The same way, you give food here, it gets transferred and goes there. It does happen. And then we can talk about woman versus man. There's in fact elaborate prescriptions what a woman should do, what a man should do, and there is clear distinction of roles. Again, because of knowledge and dissemination and of information, what has happened is it's good for everybody to know everything. In fact, everybody is supposed to know everything. Shastras never said don't teach ladies. That's not true. But now what has happened is because I know I can demand. We have started come to that, and we are beginning to see the merger of roles and responsibilities. Even in management, we say you want clear role and responsibility. You don't want the developer to be testing. You don't want the tester to be developing. You have a clear role. The same way, here also we have to keep that differentiation. Nevertheless, many people mess up with that, and usually that leads to problems. Again, representative of what some of the things we do. A lot of the rituals are actually prescribed for ladies also. It's not like only men have to do and women just cook. No, there's some rituals prescribed for them also. The most important thing is they are the most critical, again, linchpin of the family. And in fact, Shastras actually talk about how the woman, the child, when the girl is born, from that birth itself, how she is taken care all the way till the end. Somebody is always guarding her. In the beginning, they talk about how different devatas are actually guarding them, and then the father guards, and after that it's the husband, and then the son. So it keeps on going. And some people think, oh, that means the woman has no independence. That's not the point. Well, I mean, will you just throw a diamond on the floor and then say, a diamond will take care of itself? Do you do that? You cherish and protect that diamond. It's the same way. The protection given to her is so important because she is the most critical. So the woman actually, the toughest job for her is she has to know everybody's dharma, not just hers, husbands, sons, daughters, everybody, and sometimes even mother-in-law and father-in-law dharma also, and she has to teach them. So she has to enforce it. So it's a very, very tough job, honestly, in my opinion. And then, of course, there are other things prescribed for Vanaprastham, Sannyasam, and so forth. In this, there's one other group that I haven't talked about, and that's the touchy area. What is that? We talk about, groups of people. We say what Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and all that. But the moment we say that, the notion of caste comes in, and then everybody says, oh, Hinduism is really bad. They are the ones who have this caste and all. Everything is horrible, the whole thing is downhill. If you don't understand it, yes. But if you understand it the right way, and I always said this in our group all the time, which is number one, we may be different. We are different because by nature. That's not the point. How we treat each other is more important. So treating each other, we are all same. In the eyes of God, we are all same. That is why we all take off our shirt when we go there. None of us wear our shirt when we go there because we are all one and the same. So how we treat each other is always important. So why did Shastras have this differentiation? Again, Varna Ashramam. We saw this last talk, I think. Varna means color. Nobody can say red is more superior to green. So nobody can say purple is better than blue. Each one is up to your individual. The same way, each soul has a disposition, a natural disposition, swabhavam. That's what it means. And the hierarchy there is really implying only spiritual maturity. Only spiritual maturity. Spiritual maturity does not mean somebody can take advantage of that. No. I mean, why are people, even if you look at animals, can we live without cows really? Yeah, there is vegan and all going on. How long it's going to sustain to be seen. but we cannot really live without cows. That's why, Vedas really created the agrarian culture and so forth. So and we are dependent on animals. When that's the case, how can we claim superiority over one another? We are all dependent. We need to work together. The stronger we hold our hands, the stronger we become. So, as humans, if we don't even understand that, then there is some other agenda, or it's unfortunate. That's all you can say, right? So, the another way to look at it, yes, they say there is. If you look at the hierarchy, the spiritual hierarchy, the Shudra is the lowest, and then they say here the Vaishya, then Kshatriya, then Brahmana. And they also talk about, for example, again, spiritual disposition. One is not at all interested. They don't even take any formal education. One, okay, I'll take formal education and everything, but I'll only go up to being maybe a grihastha, that's it. Maybe a vanaprastha, that's it. I won't go beyond that. Another goes even further, maybe up to a retiree seclusion, that's it. But I can't go beyond that. I can't completely withdraw from everything. It's pretty difficult. So that's another person. And one says, all right, everything I've seen, everything, I'm completely withdrawing myself. So that's all it means, these 4 levels. And again, before we get caught in these 4 levels on how we all compare with each other and so forth, let's understand the Shastras a little bit more carefully. In fact, Manu Smriti or Rishi Manu says, not 4, there are actually, he prescribes 8 or 9 levels of all living beings. Why just humans? Last talk we saw all the Shastram applies only to humans because we have the power to think. But he actually talks about 8 or 9 levels. Number 1, of course, is the lowermost, all species, all living beings. That's where you start. I mean, even amoeba, right? You start from the unicellular organisms. But then the next higher level is pranan. They're able to breathe. How many animals are there? They can just breathe. You start there. And then buddhi, so they can think. There are animals. Dogs are so intelligent. Elephants are intelligent. Cows are intelligent, right? So many animals use their brains, buddhi. So that's the next level. Then only humans come. Naraha, humans. And of course, in the Naraha, I told you about the 4 levels. And after the 4 level, it's not like Brahmana is at the top. No, there is still more than above him. Simply because somebody just, became a Brahmin. Okay, he is doing Upanayanam and everything. He got that done. He's doing Sandhyavandanam. He's learning Vedas. He's doing rituals. That's still not the end game. That is still the starting point for the remaining part of the journey. What is the remaining part of the journey? Above that, the person becomes a Vidwan, really superior in knowledge and everything, setting as a role model example, right? Vidwan. So we put him in that category. And next is Krita Buddhayaha. This is important. So Krita Buddhayaha means what? Now you're talking about somebody who is really looking at the end goal. Where is all this going? Ultimately, my job is to achieve moksham. So what is moksham? I want to escape the cycle of birth and death. I want to reach and become one with God. I know the goal. I understand. It's all not practical, sir. Like you can't implement it. It's fine, great, but you really can't make it happen. Stops there. So knows where to go, but cannot go. So above that, Kartaraha, the one who can actually do it. Start towards the journey, renounce everything and all that. So that's the next level. And finally, only the one who actually reaches the destination. So one who tried doesn't mean they're going to reach the destination. If they find the right guru, that they're on the right journey, where they're on the right path, did they actually reach the destination? Did they reach the right destination or the wrong destination? Still, right? So finally, you have Brahma Vadinaha, one who really becomes one with Brahman or God. So many levels are there. When you look at it in this grand spectrum, it would be silly of us to say, I am different, you are different, this and that, and we have hierarchy and we have to fight over that. Let's settle it today itself. No, I think that's a wrong approach. We are all interdependent on each other, not just as humans, even between animals and us. And there are so many other things above us also. And all of these are interconnected. If we know that, we can see the progression easily. So one final question and then I'll stop. So does this mean that everybody becomes a Brahmana and then Kartru Buddhaya, Kartavya, what is it? Kartaraha, all that. Is that the Krita Buddhaya, Kartaraha? Is that the only way to go? Is there, what about others who don't know Vedas or anything? Is there no way out? Certainly not. Everybody has the way out. If you look at our Puranas, they are full of stories where why humans? Animals have got salvation. Haven't you heard of the story of the elephant getting salvation, the spider getting salvation? So many different types of stories. Even animals can get. So forget about humans. That means there is a path for everybody. The paths may be different, but there is a path for everybody. And one who has the conviction can get to the right goal, right? So with that, the main thing I want to emphasize is, finally, Dharma Shastram, why should we need to know about it? Unfortunately, the world is as it is. We can't change that. It would be nice to say everybody has to be dharmic. I don't know when it will happen. And our Shastras talk about cycles, the cycles of times, yugas and all that, when things go up and down. So what can we do? We do our duty. That is called Swadharma. Swadharma, what am I supposed to do? I know that. So how do I do my duty? To really do that, you need to understand, first thing is, what is your kartavya dharma, what you're supposed to do. What is your nishiddha dharma, what are you not supposed to do. Understand that first. And then when you know your swadharma, then you can talk about maybe paradharma and all that, but you don't have to focus on that. Just focus on what you're supposed to do. Do that to the best of your ability. If you make a mistake, as I said, feel sad for it, repent, atonement, and then move on. And we just keep refining ourselves as we go further and further. If we can keep doing that, that's probably the best thing we can do. And over time, automatically, I guess, people will look to us and they will, one day or the other, we may not be able to influence everybody, but I'm sure in the family, around the family and friend circles, slowly people will look at us and watch. And because I said, Dharma Shastra, he is the, teacher of Dharma as Ayyappa devotees, and similarly as students of Vedas, it's all the more important that we try to be those role models. As Ayyappa devotees, we all have a duty to know what is our Swadharmam. Given that Swadharmam, am I doing it fully or not? How can I be a role model for others? It's not about these mandalam, 41, 48 days over. All right, Swami, let's start. Come on. It's not like that. So how can you continue that year round, life round, goes on. So just, I guess the real challenge, as I said, there are two challenges. Number one, what Shastras say don't do, we want to do. What Shastras say do, we don't want to do. So we have to fix that negative image, or it's almost like film, right? Photo looks right, negative looks exactly the opposite. So if we have the negatives of dharma, we have to first fix that. The other major problem that we are seeing also in life is, because of technology, knowledge, information, internet and everything, everybody wants to switch Swadharma. Why he can do it, why can't I do it? I don't know about my dharma, but I want to do his dharma. So there is a lot of this switching or desire for switching going on. I did say that it's swabhavam, which means your innate nature. So can my innate nature not be something like that? Yes, it's possible. You can change it, but it's not easy. Why is it not easy? Because when you have an interest, innate desire, what do? You do things that are allied with that, right? You keep doing that, what you like more and more. If you keep doing what you like more and more, your habits, your rituals, everything develops around that. So then you become a habit. If that becomes your habit and lifestyle, as we call, your family adopts the same lifestyle. Your kids, you try to teach them. So now you can see it's much bigger than just one individual. And then suddenly we talk about, oh, my parents, grandparents, great-grandparents. So the choices are made. It's not like we have a lot of freedom. Many of these choices seem to have been made. That's why it feels like many of these concepts seem to be tied to birth. But it's not quite true if you really understand the deep meaning behind it. So can I change it? Of course, you can. But then you have to ask yourself, Am I changing it as an individual? Am I changing it as a parent? I can tell you, I can't even get my kids to do many of the things that I can do. I just can't. So I'm already so limited in my freedom. Then am I deciding as a grandparent? One day, if I'm not even around, my the descendants will think, oh, my grandparents decided, so I have to do it. Are we able to influence that much? But now you can see the challenge in switching just like that. So it's not like tossing a coin. There's a lot more to it. That's why the best form of medicine is know your Swadharmam, follow that. That is the best possible medicine. And as we do that, hopefully we'll develop an integrated self, society, where it's full of peace, prosperity, and purity for all of us. That purity is such an important aspect, especially because when everything is getting adulterated, purity automatically drops. So focus on purity, try to become more pure. In fact, my guru beautifully has composed a song where he talks about the goddess Sharadamba as Kali Kalmashagni. Kali means, of course, Kali, this Kali Yugam. Kalmasha means dirt, everything. Agni, she kills that impurity. So may goddess, Sharadamba's blessings and Guru's blessings be with all of you, be with me, so we all can correct ourselves, become purer and purer, more integrated, and lead happy, prosperous, peaceful lives. Shri Guru Pyo Namaha.